Hi, welcome to the historic Livery Theatre here in beautiful downtown Goderich. My name is Rob Bundy, and we're talking about things salt, but we're also talking about this building. This building was built in like the 1840s or something, wasn't it, Sally? Amazingly long time ago. It's been a long time this building's been standing here, and the gal who's going to tell us all about it is Sally Walker. Sally is a retired teacher, a great volunteer, member of the Goderich Little Theatre, and a published author. She has a book, 101, isn't that called? 101, pick one of those up. Sally's going to tell us all about this historic building, as well as some of the things that are coming up here at the Livery Theatre over the next season. So would you please welcome Sally Walker.
First of all, good afternoon, and thank you so much for coming on a nice summer Saturday afternoon. I'm not sure that maybe I would have, but lovely to see everybody. Thank you also to the town of Goderich for inviting a representative to speak about the Goderich Little Theatre. And I'm proud to say that my involvement with this organization spans the last 5 decades as one of the many thousands of volunteers who have made contributions to the GLT and to its beautiful theatre, our beloved Livery. This afternoon, I shall briefly speak about the fascinating history of our building, as it has been expanded and adapted for many uses over 184 years. And then I'll tell you about some of the people who've been involved in the story of the GLT's 76-plus years as the cornerstone of Goderich's culture and dramatic arts. You'll learn about what went on behind the scenes, as well as about what you may have seen on stage, and some events will surprise you. The first 2 sections will be brought into focus by some accompanying slides and by some of my personal reflections. I do want to give credit and thanks to Lynn Borth, a summer helper who has done a fantastic job putting together our slideshow, assisted by our super manager, Kara Loft. And thank you, Adam Smith, for helping being our technical wizard, and to my husband, David, who will be on the button of the slide projector. Finally, I shall offer a brief glimpse into our future and what is planned for our theater company in the 24-25 season, and maybe beyond. At the conclusion, I'll be very pleased to answer any questions. Now, I was here for the last chat, and I realized the focus of this weekend is salt, and I'm scrambling because mine is not about salt. However, it kind of is, because I have a daughter-in-law who's a chef, and she said once to me, well, salt, Sally, isn't really a taste on its own so much. It's put on food to bring out the best qualities, natural qualities of whatever the dish is you're serving. Well, I can tie that in quite easily, because to me, having this livery and the Goderich Little Theatre has brought out, just not for me, but by so many for so many people, that extra taste, that extra flavor in life. And for that, I'm very, very grateful. When thinking about a title for my talk, I came up with Forging Our Future. And this seemed very appropriate, for this was our beginning. Our building began as a humble harness shop/smithy in 1840 when Samuel Siegmuller built a small structure using Maitland River stone. It was located in what is now our kitchen, which is back of me. Pioneer Siegmuller was from New Hampshire and was a trader in hides and whiskeys along the Huron Track. In 1878, the building was purchased by A.M. Pauley, who added 2 additions to its front, also made of Maitland River stone. It was a fine example of adaptive reuse of space, as he built a handsome structure with a nod to the boomtown style of the times, with its ornate facade, curved windows, and front door. It housed a livery and a stagecoach business and was an excellent choice of location for these, as the Bedford Hotel and the Exchange Hotels were just outside on South Street and the Square. Polly's dapple gray horses, known by locals as Polly's Spots, were busy making trips, especially down to the harbor and to the railway stations. In the next century, as cars replaced horses, the livery housed car dealerships as Huron Motor Sales and Goderich Motors took over its commercial usage beginning in the 1920s. It was in a great central location, but eventually the owners needed more space to expand, and they began to move to larger spaces. Once again, our livery was repurposed. Unfortunately, we could not find a photo for this brief period, but in 1974, it became a building center owned and managed by Ken Hutchins. However, as I say, it only lasted 2 or 3 years. Now the interesting part to me, or the part I'm most familiar with. By 1978, the building was slated for demolition. How could it be saved, and for what new purpose? Goderich Town Council, however, recognizing the historical importance of the building, forestalled the demolition, allowing time for a private citizen interested in the preservation of historic buildings to intervene with a down payment on the property. And a local architect, Chris Borgel, recognized then its potential as a theater. Soon a group of enthusiasts formed the Goderich Arts Foundation, dedicated to the recycling of the livery as a focal point for the promotion of the arts. The building was purchased by the Goderich Little Theatre, and I'll call it mostly during my talk the GLT, by fundraising events and with the support community in 1983. Although many citizens were involved in saving this building, one woman, Dorothy Wallace, became the driving force of its reprieve from the wrecking ball. And in the summer of 2015, her memory was honored by the GLT by the creation of the Dorothy Wallace Garden immediately to the south of our front door. And if you have a minute, look at it, because it's a lovely little area and there's a plaque and a bench that are there in Dorothy's memory and honor. The exterior of the livery today. Maintenance and upgrades have continued both on the outside and the inside of the building, as the GLT is committed to preserving and enhancing our unique and cherished home. Let us now focus on some of the people who have been vital to the GLT from its earliest times to the present. Obviously, you will see and hear only but a small fraction of these volunteers. I want to emphasize that word, volunteer, because that's what's always made up our organization. Even today, our general manager is the only person that's on the regular payroll. And conversely, our volunteers over decades, and this even shocked me, would number in the thousands. In my talk, I'm going to try hard not to single out too much any one person, because I think each and every volunteer, be it on stage or off stage, including the myriad of production positions, wonderful musicians, or those working on the board of directors or its numerous subcommittees, all have helped the Goderich Little Theatre, a nonprofit organization, which for years has acted as the community's arts center, primarily dramatic arts, but not solely. We are truly grateful to everyone for their commitment and contributions of time and financial resources. We couldn't have done it without you. This next photo shows two of several display boards that were pored over by people who attended the GLT's 60th anniversary for a weekend reunion in 2008. And I had the pleasure of being co-chair with Roberta Mackin for that occasion. I think we had 100 volunteers just working on that weekend. The memories, the laughter, the pride of their involvement was a joy to see. It truly felt like a wonderful family reunion. But in researching my talk, I discovered that in reality, we need to go back farther. And we need to go back to our original beginnings a long time ago. From the early 1930s, drama had been alive and well in our community. The IODE and the Lions Club sponsored dramatic presentations, but it was the Arthur Circle Players Company that was the foundation of the future Goderich Little Theatre, according to the then member, Madeline Edward. And some of you will remember Madeline, just a wonderful woman. They put on an annual play in the Knox Presbyterian Church basement. It ran for 3 nights, and tickets were 50 cents apiece. It was a branch of the Women's Missionary Society, and, well, they broke the rules because they asked men to join too. And by all accounts, it was an accomplished group and became very, very popular. At the dawn of the Second World War, it became less active, but it resumed activities for a few years after the war. By 1946 to 47, a group with a love of theater got together and decided to start a new club called the Goderich Dramatic Club. They elected an executive, and they started off by meeting in each other's homes, where they read plays and had discussions about directing and acting, staging, makeup, and all things connected to theater. Soon they had formed a close liaison with the London Little Theatre and were presenting 2 nights of plays to the public. But there was a problem. There was no suitable playhouse. And then they heard that the McKay Hall was going to make improvements to their stage, and that helped us out. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. The group also competed in the Goderich and Western Ontario Drama Festival, and it won many, many awards. Sometime in the 50s, the company adopted the name of the Goderich Little Theatre, and it's remained so till this time. So now I'm going to stop reading so much. I had to make sure I got my facts, and we have marvelous archival material, and I really enjoyed the preparation for this talk because I've learned a lot. But I'm going to go off script, and I'm going to talk about some memories of the GLT that are my memories, but also shared to me by others. There'll be photos from some shows, and I've really tried to show ones that depict the many, many genres that have been performed in this space. Comedies and farces, pantomimes and melodramas, musicals, serious dramas, mysteries, historic plays, one-acts, family shows, at Christmas especially, and I probably am forgetting others. These productions have featured actors and crew as young as 6 to those on stage in their 80s and 90s. Where else do you get together with that broad spectrum of ages? I don't know. Well, maybe churches, but certainly it's been a wonderful experience here. These people have come from all walks of life with very differing abilities and with very diverse personalities. But always they have been dedicated people who've been part of a team effort to produce the very best show that they can. And obviously I can't take time to focus on every play, or I really would have to be hooked off the stage. I also want to apologize, too, if I seem to over-focus on some shows that I have connection with, but, you know, those are truthfully the ones that I know most about. I apologize, therefore, if there's any show you'd really like me to talk about, and I've missed it. But maybe talk to me after, and I'll put you in touch with somebody out here who might know something about it that I didn't know. Some of the next slides just are from shows in the 60s and 70s, which were all in the McKay Hall, to my knowledge. The man that just left, his mother, Virginia Lodge, was very active in those days. The next slide, slide 18 for my man, the date on this photo caught my eye. And because that was the week we moved to Goderich, Ontario. And it came the first, I don't think it was the first show. I think it was in the fall of that year that, I want to just say, there's a photo here of Kathy Jenkins, and she's a brilliant actress, but I'm going to talk more about her in a minute. But the first play that we attended would have been in the fall of 1975 at the McKay Hall. And I'm sorry, I can't remember which play it was, but I sure remember what happened right after intermission. Now, we had been students at the University of Toronto, and we didn't go to many live theatre because we had no money. But we did take a class I was teaching to the O'Keefe Centre to see Anne of Green Gables. And it was a beautiful theatre, and I was gobsmacked, and the kids were. Well, then the next play I came to was at the McKay Hall. And we're sitting in the back row, and the lights dim, ready for Act 2, and an announcer's voice said, "Ladies and gentlemen, don't be alarmed. A cat is coming in off North Street, and so if you feel something brushing up against your legs, don't scream. Just leave it alone, it'll likely go out." And you know, I was hooked. I thought, this just looks like too much fun to miss. So that's when I wanted to join the Goderich Little Theatre. Slide 19 and 20 picture an article from the Signal Star, and I have to give them thanks because over the years they gave us marvelous coverage, from attending rehearsals to opening nights and writing critiques, very, very supportive of us. But this show, that's I hope on your screen, yes, this was one of the Opal series that were wildly popular and showcased a very special actress, Kathy Jenkins, and I see her daughters here. Hi, Judy. She had the comic timing and the facial expressions, honestly, of Lucille Ball and Carol Burnett combined. And I had the privilege of appearing on stage many times with Kathy. I came to appreciate her as truly professional, even though we're all amateurs here, in terms of talent and in being prepared, always giving 100% of herself, whether it was a rehearsal or a performance. She never missed a line, and she knew not just every line of her own part, but everybody else's on the stage. And this helped me save my bacon, so to speak, one night. I was in a play and pretty new on stage, and I had a soliloquy to say to the audience. And I came right down downstage to the apron, and I looked out and I gave this, I thought, amazing performance of whatever it was I was doing. And the audience clapped. And I was basking in the glory and taking it in. I turned around. I didn't know where I was, who the people were. I didn't hardly know my own name. I was totally blank. And we did in those days, excuse me, have prompters. But long before the prompter figured out that I'd just frozen, there's Kathy. And she's whispering with her face, sort of asking me questions, which were the lines that I was supposed to be saying. And I don't think anybody knew we'd flopped, but I've never forgotten it because she was a very supportive, gracious person to be on stage with. And she was a mentor to me, but to so many people at that time. For years, actually. The next slide was Fiddler on the Roof, and it's a big musical, and we did it at GDCI, I believe, twice. It was both there, I think. And I was in a later version than this in 2003. And I've chosen to speak just a minute about that production because while all our musicals are money makers usually and bring out good-sized audiences and have large casts and crews, this particular 2003 version of Fiddler had 45 cast members, 19 in the orchestra, and a production crew of 54 off stage, plus the grade 12 woodworking class from the high school. So I added it up, that comes to 118 people helped put on that play. And I think maybe that's our record, but one show. And the next slide is Miracle Worker. I've never forgotten that production. It was wonderful, both the directing and the acting. And the girl you'll see up on the screen that played Helen Keller, her maiden name was Deb Shattuck. And last year, our last show we put on, she was back in Goderich, moved back from many, many years in Toronto, and she was our director, so it was kind of the full circle. And now, the Miracle Worker isn't Ann Keller, of course, it's Annie Sullivan, and it was really played well by Colleen McGuire. Next few slides just show kind of the range of things we do. From comedy, Egad, the Woman in White, next, and Solid Gold Cadillac, and these two were in the Mackay, but the next one, The Diary of Anne Frank, which was actually a couple of years after we started to put shows here, it was in the Livery, and of course not a comedy at all. The big change to have the new home, I can't overemphasize. There were so many limitations over at Mackay Hall. It was a small stage. There were no wings off to the side to bring on and off actors. There wasn't a dedicated rehearsal space. You had to get dressed in the basement, and there was no real, green room with mirrors or makeup lights. You made do. And don't get me wrong, we were thrilled for that involvement and relationship we enjoyed with Mackay Hall for a long, long time. But when we moved into this space, just the space, it was night and day, and we were so fortunate to have it. Next slide is South Pacific. Again, a personal story. There's a little romance that goes on in that play between Lieutenant Cable and Bloody Mary's very attractive, very young daughter. Well, not illegally young, but probably 18. And she was played by Erin Robinson. And, the romantic singing and the hugging. And I'm off stage watching all this because Lieutenant Cable down there looking so innocent was the romantic lead in that. And he was doing all this singing and hugging to this very attractive, much younger woman than me. So my girlfriends backstage were kind of, teasing me about it. And I didn't really care once I got into the play because I was one of the dancing, singing nurses, but I probably put the most energy into that song. I'm going to wash that man right out of my hair. And there was a real romance that started there. Might have been two, actually, but one that I do know. Bloody Mary, who was Kathy Urbasic, who was a minister at North Street Church, met John Hindley, a high school teacher, who was a sailor in the production. They started, I think, we went out for a celebratory dinner and they started to talk, and then we heard they were dating. They've been married a long time now, so a real romance took place. Slide 28, down for the count, probably about 91. And again, I really picked that because just to show you, once again, we were featured well in the local paper. And Bedroom Farce, I don't really know much about, but that was given to me. So if you do, I hope you enjoy the picture. The next one is The Music Man. And it was a big show. And I think I wanted to briefly talk about it because so many families that have come through the GLT have had just the thrill of working with their kids. And this was the show, I guess the only show, where David and I, at least we didn't have our son in the show, but both our girls were in the show. Melissa, our older girl, had been in Brigadoon with her dad, but our 6 or 7-year-old daughter got the part of Amaryllis in Music Man. And it was just fun to be with families, but we're just one family of many who've enjoyed that experience, whether their kids been up in the tech booth or on stage or doing whatever. But we had a problem. Comes dress rehearsal, and Joanna's looking a bit flushed and feverish, and I pull her over, and she's covered in chicken pox. And we used to have dress rehearsal Sundays, and opening night was Wednesdays, and we hoped she'd be better, but opening night came and she wasn't better. And so another little girl from the community filled in for her, and our Joanna was heartbroken. Well, by Thursday, I said to my husband, this girl has to go on. So her costume was long, the makeup was thick, and she did the rest of the run. I'm not sure what the health department would have thought of her doctor father allowing that, but let's not worry about it now. Okay, Shirley Valentine. That was my first foray into directing, and I was really quite nervous, so I chose a script that didn't have a large cast, one person, and a walk-on second part. And it was a great play because we had a brilliant person, Blanche Savage, who played the lead. And we had a small thrust over here on stage left, and that was the only part lit during the first act. And I had decorated, or my set decorators, like a prison cell, so striped vertical bars of wallpaper, and it was very confining, sort of metaphorically, I hope, depicting how restricted that Shirley was feeling in her life. Well, then came the intermission, and we pulled these curtains, and the whole stage had been made into a beach on the Mediterranean, complete with real sand, a real rowboat, shells, bathed in golden light. And the whole audience, before one word was uttered, they clapped. I think they felt like they were out of prison too. But it was a really great show. Brilliant script, brilliant acting. And then the next year I must have gotten braver because I took on a 2-person script. Right now, and I said I wasn't going to talk to anybody about anybody, but I am briefly. In the front row is Maureen Penn, and she's been a mentor to me from the beginning. She's co-directed many shows with me, but she'd only ever call herself in the programs an assistant to the director. No, much more than that. And I think I asked her this week, how many shows have you worked on? And it's about 100. So one person. So that's pretty special, I think. The next slides show the ages, the big range of ages, and the different kinds of shows we did. So a children's show, Pinocchio, Mousetrap, a classic murder mystery. And this one, so the first two, especially Pinocchio, was very large children cast. This one, of course, different ages again. And they knocked it out of the park. It really is about dementia and very serious topic, and they did a wonderful job. Okay, the Scottish play. At midnight on July 1st, 2004, after the fireworks, we opened the Scottish play. And it was done by a visionary director that we know and love. Sometimes he makes us pull our hair out a bit, but that's okay, because he has such ambitions for every show. And he was directing. It was theater in the round. It was stunning acting, stunning set. So, we kind of do the full gamut here, from light comedies to the Shakespeare. Yeah. All right. And I think Rob Bundy, who introduced me, he was Macduff in that production. So, yeah. The next slides, I don't know what they are, 36, just more shows, yeah. Kathleen Hamilton, I'm not sure. And did 2 versions of Peter Pan that I recall, both very popular. Next. And Robin Hood, another one we do for families. We usually try to do 1 show a year, more a family show. Slide 39, Rocky Horror. Now, it was avant-garde in the 70s. It was avant-garde for a lot of people, probably in 2024 in Goderich. But again, Dave Armour thought the time was right to push the envelope. And I remember, and this is no joke, early plays I was in, if occasionally an actor said the word damn or the word hell, there were letters to the editor the next week complaining about it. Absolutely the truth. Well, there's a lot more than that in Rocky Horror, but we did it consciously because, we wanted to try to attract a younger audience as well as our regulars, and this certainly did it. Now, it did occur to me, I don't know what the Women's Missionary Society, who started this, would have thought about it, but everybody else seemed to love it. 2 thrillers. Thrillers are always popular, and mysteries. The first one is I'll Be Back Before Midnight, which I think we did after Blythe had done it. And this is a poster of the second version, back please, the second version of Wait Until Dark. And it was great. I directed the first version, and if anybody saw the movie with Audrey Hepburn, I always thought that would be a fun show, and it was. Timing's so important, lighting was tricky. But the thing I remember most is you have these tough guys, and one's the murderer. And I happened to be visiting my parents in Florida that year, and I went to a flea market, and there on the table were all manner of weapons. So I picked up an authentic pair of brass knuckles and a pretty authentic looking switchblade and drove back over the border. Don't think that would happen nowadays, but it did when we did that play. Okay, Great Storm. We've done many historic, very popular shows here again, and well, they should be. And this isn't all of them, but Crow Hill, On Convoy, Dr. Bernarder's Children, 10 Lost Years, The Tiger's Lion, The Last Man Hanged, and our opening show in October this year is Streamliners. Don't miss it. Get your tickets fast. They're going like hotcakes. And they are, if you call the Livery box office, 519-524-6262, or thelivery.ca, you can get tickets. And they've been written by Warren Robinson and Duncan McGregor and other local people, and you know, a great way to learn about our own history. Next. Okay, that's more children's. Steel Magnolias, some of you will have seen the movie, that was very popular. Crow Hill, one of our historic plays. Okay. Next. Okay, next to normal. I just put that up because, you know, we try to offer kind of a smorgasbord of kinds of plays to our audiences, but we don't steer away from really important matters that we need to talk about. So we've dealt with, our plays have dealt with mental health, dementia, xenophobia, sexuality issues, addiction, and others. And sometimes they've been presented as dramas, as this one more was a drama. They're dramedies, which are a combination and often a good vehicle for teaching because they're not too heavy. There's comic sides to them, but at their heart, they're quite serious. And I would put Norm Foster, a Canadian playwright, Office Hours and Kiss the Moon, Kiss the Sun, which we've done here. You know, both had those elements. And sometimes they're really good psychological thrillers. And we did one a couple of years ago called Proof. And it was, you know, really heavy in a way, but really made you think and at the edge of your seat. The Secret Garden. This was a big cast, lots of children, but the biggest difference for that play, it was the first really big attempt of very little traditional set building with lumber and paint and wallpaper, some of that. But mostly this time, we relied on the use of scrims and a cyclorama, which is like a wall and you have fabric that has art on it and they're projected, so that this stage, opening scene, was a storm at sea and it looked real. And then we went into the manor house and we were in their beautiful foyer and it looks real, and you go out to the secret garden wall. And it was just beautiful. I've got to give credit to Nicole Griffin because she was really the artistic person behind that. Good show. And Calendar Girls. Calendar Girls was a funny show. I hope a lot of you saw it. It really emphasized, I think, changing of the times. We had one of my own daughters had a costume malfunction years earlier in a play called Harvest Moon Rising, and she'd been a pioneer girl with a baby in a rocking chair, and she had quite a lengthy speech and quite a large realistic baby that she was nursing supposedly in a shawl, and she was to hand the baby over to the other actor. So Melissa, who was a teenager, somehow got the baby caught in the shawl, and suddenly she's on stage in her bra. So she grabbed the baby by the foot, finished the speech with the baby dangling down, and then I'll never forget her handover line was, "Oh, there's so much to learn." But we went from that to doing Calendar Girls, and they actually well, we call them actors, you know, we've gone away from actress, actor. The actors, which were actresses, too, they decided they'd go topless, like really topless. So they turned away from the audience and got undressed to the waist, and then they were each given a prop, whether it was a basket of fruit, or maybe it was flowers, and then they turned around and faced the stage. And, you know, I think everybody really realized, hey, they don't have anything on under there. But, you know, it was carried off beautifully. It was a great show. Tennessee Williams classic, Cat in a Hot Tin Roof. That was a great one. And 49, Christmas, we do pageants around here. We'll talk more about that in a minute. 51, sorry, I skipped something. Okay, plays off-site. We have done a few plays in our history out of our theater, and I think my favorite, we've done once at the high school, but we've done 3 at the jail, which makes a wonderful backdrop for certain kinds of plays. And we've done A Midsummer Night's Dream, The Penelopead, and Measure for Measure. So Shakespeare, Margaret Atwood Shakespeare. And other than weather is tricky, and you have to admit. And sometimes we've lost revenue because we just couldn't put a show on because of rain or whatnot. But boy, is it effective when it works. So they've been fun shows to be involved in. Canadian content in the next one, Tempting Providence. And again, a departure because we didn't have a lavish set. We had a minimalistic set, and the audience was required to imagine very simple items being many different things. And unfortunately, we didn't get to see that, but it had rave reviews by the people who did. Recent shows. Can you go back one, I think, dear? Yes. I want to mention how many times Warren and Eleanor Robinson have contributed here to our theater, but also especially for their Christmas shows. And that Warren usually writes the script, sometimes directs, sometimes is a lead, and Eleanor sometimes directs, and does music. So they're very, very hard workers around here, as are a lot of people I see out in the audience that we just couldn't do without. Okay, 55, Home Fires, great show. Elizabeth Rex, another Dave Armour directed one, and it was theater in the round and a heavy topic. It was by Timothy Findlay, and very powerful, powerful theater. And the only other place locally, I think, that's done it is the Stratford Festival. Okay. Moving forward, the first time for everything. So I was speaking to a person here this week and said, now just tell me again exactly what this is. And she said, well, it's twofold. Her main purpose to bring new people into our fun that we have here, and experienced people who maybe have always done a certain job as a volunteer here but would like to try something new, or somebody who's never had any theatrical experience but would like to learn more about it. And they work in workshops with people that can sign up for these. Their performances, they do 4 shows in the summer. And, they're very popular and a great way to get more people involved. It's sort of a really good example of how we try to keep thinking ahead, because we owe so much and will always honor those from our past. We must welcome new blood and embrace the new Goderich Little Theatre volunteers because they bring fresh ideas and energy and enthusiasm. And things have changed. Our demographics have changed. Dave and I were talking last night. When he and I used to come to productions, Literally, we knew 90 to 100% of the people in the audience, every time. Now we come to a show, we might know 10%. And that's sort of bad for us because we're missing faces that we used to love to see here. But for the vitality of this organization, it's fabulous. We can't be static. Ordinary Magic, it was started with simply back probably in the 80s when two moms got together and did small groups of drama with children. Rec Board got involved in the 90s, and Jennifer Black, who was very active with children's theatre, both here and at McKay Centre. And now the last few years it's back at the Livery. And let me tell you, when they put on a show here, grandparents and parents and friends, it's standing room only almost, although we don't do standing room because of the fire, right? Anyway, this year they're anticipating there'll be about 100 enrolled kids, ages in 5 to 8 years, and 9 to 12, and 13 to 18. And at least 4 directors. They'll rehearse off-site, but their shows will be here next spring. So if you know young people in our community and they have any interest in this, make sure you look for when to sign up. And this seems to be a good time for me to kind of wind up and to reflect on an often asked question. Are there any practical long-term benefits for children and youth being involved in a Goderich Little Theatre production? One word, yes. Many have gone on to successful careers as actors, directors, stage managers, producers, writers, lighting and sound experts, licensed tradespeoples, theatre executive directors and managers, graphic and set designers, makeup and costume artists, producers of films, professional theatre consultants, professional musicians, teachers of the arts, and that's just to name some. These people live as productive and creative citizens both here and in places throughout Ontario, Canada, and the world. Never underestimate the power of arts to provide economic opportunities. And even for those who choose career paths with nothing to do with the arts, never underestimate the power of the arts to teach the values of hard work, collaboration, cooperation, problem solving, and to enrich, entertain, and enlighten lives forever. Next. Okay, because of the time, I want to briefly mention we have done 2 radio plays, which were fun. That's for people of a certain age that have a little bit more trouble with lines, remembering them. And you just have 3 rehearsals, but you actually get to read the play. So that was I took part in one and it was fun. We also, for many years, have been involved with the Film Fest, and we get films from the TIFF film circuit, and they're shown at the Park Theatre, 1 a month usually, and we have a loyal following there. If you're a member of the GLT, and it's easy to buy a membership. Instead of $12 for a play, it's $8, or a movie, it's $8, so lots of benefits. But everybody's going to get one of these to take home. It tells you about what our season is next year, and it tells you about TIFF as well. So that's something we do. Next season. So these basically are our shows for next year. Tomorrow, Duncan McGregor will be talking about his blockbuster of a show, Streamliners, which is about a true story about a band that started in this area and was very popular during the Second World War. The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane, and it's our family show this year, and a new director, Jennifer Castillo, will be doing that. And it's about a boy who, I think there's a mishap, and he ends up in the ocean and meeting all these wonderful magical creatures. So it'll be entertaining. Picasso at the La Pinegile is actually written by Steve Martin, the comedy actor that you'll be familiar with. And it sounds very entertaining, about a meeting or meetings between Picasso and Einstein in Paris. And the play that goes wrong will be on next June, and it's by Nina Reynolds, who's also done so much for our theater, and as a director and all manner of things. And it just sounds like a really fun show as well. So that's what's on offer. Next year, please take one of these home and join us. I told you at the onset that I could not really properly do justice to the evolution of the Goderich Little Theatre and its historic home, the Livery. And if you'd heard another speaker, you would have gotten an entirely different perspective. And I apologize that I feel I've been me, I, and I don't like that, but that's what you got. There have been many times of serious challenges, annoying setbacks, great losses, including a fire in a storage barn in the 1970s, which destroyed all of our costumes as well as many props and sets that we'd collected up until that time. There have been fierce snowstorms that halted rehearsals and shows, falls by an actor down a set of set stairs during a play, and another who went off the edge of the stage. Fortunately, neither was seriously hurt. There was the chaos after the tornado of 2011, the upheaval of the COVID pandemic, and especially the loss of dear Goderich Little Theatre volunteers who've passed away. In my 50 years of involvement, I've flooded with memories. The first meeting I attended was with a former treasurer, a man of business on the square. I was in my 20s, a non-drinker and pretty green, and the first thing he did was open the bottom of his filing cabinet and pour me a coffee mug full of whiskey and said, "Good morning." And fortunately, he got called out of the office, and I took one sip of it, and the rest of it went in his potted plant. True. There one show we had where everybody had to turn on their cell phone flashlights. Remember that? Because the power had gone off. The play had to go on. One person in this audience, not to mention any names, was given the task of finding a cat skeleton. Not an artificial one. It had to be the real McCoy. That was not an easy find. Many of us remember Gairbraid, that acting company of young professionals and community people who put on wonderful productions in the summers of 2006 and 2007. We've been to coffee houses, musical evenings, receiving Froggy Awards. And if you want to know what a Froggy Award is, speak to me after. We've lugged chairs, and I'm not saying we, me, it's everybody, lugged sets, chairs, risers, and putting them together before every single show we do. It's tremendously hard work, and it's tremendously heavy work, and it's ongoing. To attending too many damn meetings, we've all done that if we've been around too long, to vigorously rattling sheet metal throughout a whole play because every time it said thunder, you were the thunder, to pulling a very, very heavy stage curtain, trying to get it to go kind of quickly and smoothly, and it was a bit of a nightmare. to remembering an actress who had to run off stage. She had the flu, she had the bucket behind stage, she had to eat a box of chocolates on stage. They ended up in the bucket before she went out for her next scene, but the show had to go on. We've battled bats, mice, frying and freezing our butts off before our wonderful new HVAC system was installed. We've brought in New Year's with lovely galas. We've taken part in workshops, fundraisers, potluck meals, and after-show drinks, especially at the Bedford. We've mollified hurt feelings occasionally, and we've cheered many other successes. We've shared in the laughing, crying, arguing, negotiating, collaborating, being scared, taking risks, building skills, and gaining self-confidence. But most of all, we've been part of a most wonderful group, and really it is a family of sorts, all committed to that saying, the show must go on, so we might as well make it a mighty darn fine one. Now, what about our future? And then I promise I'm going to end after this. Just as the members of the group of 76 years ago in their living rooms, I think if they could see us right now, they'd be enormously proud of the legacy that they left. Can you imagine what our organization might look like in 2100, 75 years on, 76? Our goal has always been to have a community theater that inclusively provides opportunities for everyone who wants to be actively involved in joining in the fun in whatever capacity they're comfortable with. To become enriched personally and to in turn contribute to our community's health and well-being, economically, socially, and in its quality of life. Our future will continue to evolve as nothing ever does remain static. It is our dream to celebrate the arts on an even broader scale and with expanded and enhanced facilities perhaps in the futures and with our programming for generations to come. What a worthwhile legacy and what a privilege. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sally. Wonderful. Sally does a lot of work here too at the theater. I don't know if she mentioned that, but we're happy to have people like you around, Sally. Fantastic.
Yes.
Any questions? Anybody want to ask any questions of Sally? You have lots of stuff up here to have a look at.
Yeah, I'll just quickly say, feel free, there's some old newspaper articles, pictures, a little brochure from our 60th anniversary, a picture of the building, our theater, like transforming it into a theater. The hanging is interesting. That's made of pieces of costumes from the production of Macbeth, and beautifully made. So fabrics from their costumes of the various actors. And of course, pull it. Can you hold it up there?
I don't know. Is it okay if I touch it?
No, I'm talking about the head.
I know. That's what I mean.
Okay.
Maureen doesn't like people to touch that, but I can.
Well,
I've held
careful.
it before, just so you know. On stage, I've held it.
So this is, yes, please don't touch that, but look at it. It's pretty fragile, but I think, who was the actor? Wes McVicker, and that was Macbeth's head. And we had to keep it for posterity.
And it has appeared on stage since then, two or three more times. Yeah, it's amazing. So this little prop here has been around, and that's Wes's face. They actually made a plaster cast of his face. It's pretty amazing, eh? Yeah.
And if you're interested what the Froggy Awards are about, speak to Maureen or myself and we'll tell you. Okay, thank you.